Hello and welcome to the 0 to 1 program, a journey into the Filecoin ecosystem. I am your host, Porter Stoll, and joined as always with me is Mr. Bob Dubois. Bob, how are we doing today?
Good, and even better now I'm here. So yeah, perfect.
Excellent. For those of you new to the show, this is where we go into what it takes to become a Filecoin storage provider. We have a series of subject matter experts and storage provider from across our ecosystem sharing their knowledge and experience on what it takes to become a Filecoin storage provider. Super excited for today's show. We have a great lineup today with Svetly Metodiev from Aligned, as well as Azher Mughal, also known as Mongo, here to share their stories on what it takes to get into the ecosystem. Today, our focus is on how to set up your storage provider operations. And with that, please let me introduce Svetly and Azher. Svetly, how are you doing today?
Good, Porter. It's a great day. I mean, we saw the Starship rocket launch from 0 to 1 today, so I think it's timely to be on here.
Nice. And Svetly, tell us who you work with and where you're based.
I'm in Southern California right now. I work with Align, so we do sealing as a service. We have a large sealing pipeline we developed in a data center in Ohio, Canton, Ohio.
Excellent. And Azher, welcome to the 0 to 1 program. So excited to have you as our special guest today. Can you introduce yourself to the crowd?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for having me over here. I'm just a crypto enthusiastic, have been in the Filecoin ecosystem for quite many years. But I was very novice into the Filecoin as of mid last year when I got introduced by Wes Floyd into Picnic, Phil Plus, ASPA. So all these terminologies were very new for me. So I am right at the door, done something, and then we'll talk on it.
Excellent. For those of you who don't know Azher, you are in for a special treat today. Azher represents probably one of, if not my most favorite story for a single person setting up their own storage provider operation. And today, our focus is going to be on Azher and all the things that he did to get from 0 to 1. So with that, Azher, before we kick off, tell me a little bit more about how you took your first step and said, I'm going to participate in this ecosystem. Take me back to that moment. What were you seeing? What were you thinking? And what got you to say yes?
Well, it was a tough route for me. As I mentioned earlier, that I wanted to learn a lot about the Filecoin mining, as I used to do Ethereum mining as well in the past. And when it stopped September last year, then I had a lot of GPUs with me. Before that, I started learning a little bit about Filecoin, and I just started working with a friend at Seattle. We hosted a small server in his remote co-location, but without any knowledge that how it will work on PC2 with a unsupported GPU, amount of the RAM, and the size of the collateral that you need. So there were so many unknowns for me. But what happened is that I met Wes Floyd in one of the meetings, thinking and discussing about compute over data. And I had so many questions. So Wes was a great entry point for me into this ecosystem. And then how it started basically is, you need a lot of upfront CapEx in order to be a good SP, which was a challenge for me. And so what had happened is one of my friends at a data center, they were decommissioning a huge pile of 4 terabyte storage drives, SAS. And along with those were some enclosures from EMC, some servers. So I thought that, maybe this could be a good opportunity for me to think for a large set of storage without investing anything, and let's go on. So here comes me, my system admin hat and my network admin hat, and I thought that, okay, let's start connecting JBars, throw some Ubuntu, the miner, the node, and set up some wallets. But still, so many hiccups because in setting up the node, sometimes it is challenging. I had to go and through the documentation. But it was the ASPA last year in October that was an eye opener for me, and there were so many great folks that helped me set up this one. I would like to acknowledge James from Picnic, very good friend Stephen from Granite Mining, and there I met Jonathan Harold. So how it goes that since I had this setup and I started to launch, but collateral was always a challenge, how to get the collateral for the Phil Plus deals. So Jonathan worked with Dharma to get the collateral, and while I had the hardware setup, so we thought that let's set up some partnership as a friendly partnership, and that's how a small a friendship started.
Hey, Azher, as I hear your story, like it seemed like you were a bit opportunistic, and so many people have this perception that being a storage provider in Filecoin requires you to be a substantial player, a lot of investment, but you kind of had a different approach, and I think nothing explains it better than this picture right here. So, talk to me about what we're seeing here, and once you decided to go into this, walk me through that process again of just how you went about setting up your own Filecoin storage provider.
Yeah, so you see my small mini garage on the screen right now in the backyard of my house. But I started calling and telling my son as well, hey, let's not call this as a garage. Let's label this one as a data center. And so he goes and helps me pulling some caddies, hard drives here and there, So when we first came into this house back in 2020, there was no door over here on the right side that you see. There was no air conditioner. There was no vent on the top and on the left bottom as well, behind one of the tree. So I thought that, what I'm going to use this garage for. And my wife wanted to demolish this one, and so that there's a huge, nice back view of the mountain of the San Bernardino over here in California. I thought that let's keep it for a little while and label it as a data center. So all the drives, the EMC enclosures, whatever I had, I bought a small Walmart shelf, some motherboards from eBay, Supermicro motherboards, used AMD processors, DDR4 memory here and there, NVMEs, not much investment on it. And this is how it looks like from inside. You'll see, the second picture from the left is 3 shelves there. You'll see some fans. The leftmost system on the 1, 2, 3 on the third shelf is my window post and my winning post. Just imagine, 15,000 worth of collateral on this system running, but it's running fine. You just need to have like a little bit of system admin hat on it so that you know how to set it up. A lot of mess over here. I think I should clean this environment a little bit, but you will see. So I when I went to the ASPA last year, I was introduced to the moonlighting program by Stuart. Stuart helped me a lot. And then what happened is that then I joined moonlighting, and then there is an data prep program, and then there's an SP program as well. Sorry. For the data prep, you need a lot of storage. So, and once you have the LDN approval, what happens is that then you can inject into your own SP the Phil Plus deals from the data that you have already prepared through the moonlighting program. Or if you have the LDN, you can go through that route as well. So I downloaded a lot of data sets that I was approved for, prepared them, and then once I was allowed to inject that into my SP, then basically what was the next challenge? A huge sealing pipeline. And that was a big challenge for me, that how do I get a lot of memory, a lot of scratch space for the NVMe, high-end processors, a lot of cores, with a lot of good CPU models, in a sense that it has higher base frequency and the core counts. Then for the PC2, you require GPUs and a lot of RAM, 192 for each sector. So I had a little bit of setup with input. If you please go to the next slide, maybe that might show up, and then we can come back to this slide.
Sure.
So this is how I try to set it up. On the left bottom, you can see that there's a node that system which is running Lotus, Miner, Boost, a Supermicro motherboard with AMD 7402P with DDR256 and 2 terabit NVMe. Then on the right side next to it is a worker one, a PC1 worker with 1 terabyte RAM, and the next one is PC2C2, and then the fourth worker is your window post and your winning post. So
I think
I had so many.
Yeah, I think you're underestimating your skills when it comes to system administration, because you said I had a bit of a system administration hat there. But I mean, if you look at this picture and the previous one, so apart from all the physical components, you did all of the network design as well, and all of the security and all of the hardware. So it takes a lot more effort than just like, let's stitch together some systems, doesn't it?
It is. I had another hat as well from the network engineering. So I did my CCI back in 2007 from Cisco. So I'm very into the network side as well, and I love working on Ubuntu. People go for golf. I go into my mini data center and play with this stuff. So that's how it is. So the sealing pipeline was always a challenge, and I lost a lot of fills as well while mining and doing the sealing, because many sectors were lost, and sometimes my storage, my hard drives will die, and yeah, because everything was all non-procured, non-purchased item, everything was free. So this was like a good POC testing, that how one can start just with the zero, without being a hero, how you can start. Then comes Jonathan, and he helped talking with Dharma for the collateral. And then when we saw both that, hey, this sealing is not going to scale, even we have the collateral available from Dharma, then the ROI is not there. If I keep sealing the sector on this slow pace, and I keep getting some of the faults here and there on my scratch on the size of available storage that I have, and maintaining the pipeline was a difficult job. So there was a time then we thought that, okay, enough is enough. With this setup, what we can do is have a solid node, so that at least we have the miner boost for the market and the node itself, which runs very stable, and let's focus on the storage. And he talked with the line with Svetly, and then we started working on the sealing as a service. That simplified this infrastructure a lot. That removed the PC1 worker, and then the worker 3, which is on this diagram. Those were totally out. There was a small bridge software that they provided to us, and I launched that bridge software. All the jobs go straight over to Align, and then I get a sealed sector back to me, which I store into the long-term storage. There were definitely a lot of challenges initially working, because you really need to see that how are you going to consume your internet link? If the deals are coming from some other provider from outside to the boost node, then it consumes the inbound link. When the data goes over to the align, then they have to process it, and then I get the sealed copy. So I went from migrating from my 1 gig link over to 2.5 gig link, and then eventually migrated over to the 5 gig link with Frontier Fiber. And their service has been phenomenal, exceptional.
If I can ask you a question. So, I mean, I heard a couple things. One, and I love how Jonathan came out to us and was like, look, you have a similar story to a lot of SPs I've talked to, which is like, you know, a lot of them have the challenge of building out the ceiling pipeline. And so they come to me and they're like, hey, you know, can we use your ceiling pipeline to get online? And you guys came in, and like, what I love about your story is you legit went from 0 to 1 using completely aligned ceiling. So as a question, like, what was the setup like? You just said, you know, we had to set up the bridge software and then started talking about bandwidth. What was that setup like for you on connecting to Align's bridge?
So connecting with the Aligned software bridge was seamless in terms of the software installation. I just got a tar file from Stefan from Aligned, along with the token that was provided. Stefan opened up ACL on the Aligned side. On my side, it was just a tar file, unzip, launched it with a token and with some other details, and that's it. It just connected on the same machine, the same which is running the Boost, Lotus Miner, and the Lotus node. There was almost kind of negligible CPU load onto the same box. There was no extra hardware or software or any other additional stuff that I had to throw into that box. It's the same box. When you do like Lotus Miner storage, you will see remote storage. You will see remote worker as well, with a lot of FPGAs and core counts in the memory that it shows. Otherwise, you know, if you have local worker, now it shows the remote, all those details.
And so with your, basically what you're saying is with the same server that you're running your Lotus Miner, you were able to download the bridge software and run it without any extra hardware or anything in addition to that?
No, not at all. The only thing which I mentioned earlier about the bandwidth planning and the bandwidth capacity understanding, that how much fill plus deals you're getting inbound to your boost, so that it does process those and sends them out again. So the pipe is used. That's the only thing that a lot of configuration items needs to be done into the boost and the Lotus Miner, so that those are well planned, that how many gets you would like to use from the boost, how many gets would you like to use with the Lotus Miner, how many sectors you would like to be in the pipeline. That's the only thing that requires the tuning.
That was a question I had, Azher, is like, how did you calculate your 5 gigabit internet? Depending on where you are, internet can be cheap or less expensive or more expensive. So is the 5 gigabit your minimum, or would you even upgrade to 10 gigabit, or would 2.5 satisfy your needs?
If you have like in-house fill plus deals, right, then the incoming pipe will not be used. It will be only used when the Lotus Miner will do the final gets to get the sectors which are sealed at a line and get back to you into your boost, so that they are stored into the long-term storage. 5 gig, if I calculate, you know, on using some of the online calculators, I can move like 40 to 50 terabytes worth of data a day in 24 hours. So I can really seal 100 terabyte in just 2 days, if the service provider really has the bandwidth available. And in my case, maybe this area is very new where I am, but the Frontier service, as I see on the iPerf or the speed test, I really get like 5 gig in and 5 gig out. So performance is very good, and you know, of course, it will vary for area to area, for service provider to service provider. But once you have the 5 gig, And then the question is that just like the ceiling CapEx, that how would you like to use your big ceiling pipeline down the road when you're done with your ceiling? For example, you had enough collateral for about 200 terabyte or 500 terabyte, but you're not using anymore. So this 5 gig, I am hoping that down the road it will be used for the retrievals or some other activities. But for now, once the ceiling was done, then 5 gig is hardly used.
Yeah. A question from Paul in the chat is, so you had your barn setup. Is that your current setup, or did you move into a data center?
No, this is my data center. I have no plans to move it over to a data center. It's my barn setup.
Yeah.
I got a question.
Yes.
Finish up, Azher, on your last statement, though.
Yeah. A question from Victor is, what internet provider, what ISP are you using for the 5 gig line?
Yeah, I'm using Frontier Fiber. I'm in San Bernardino, California, and they have been offering, but the Spectrum is a cable service provider, which is an asymmetric service. So you are really limited to the upload bandwidth.
And Azher, what was the total? I forgot you mentioned it. What was the throughput you're able to get through that 5 gig line? What did we get you up on the ceiling? You remember? What was the total max we were doing per day for you?
So if we, other than some of the challenges on ceiling, sometimes because the bandwidth really gets choked, and maybe, some of the control messages are being delayed as well. Maybe they are time sensitive. I think what I've seen is at least between 250 to 300 sectors a day.
What would that be in like terms of tips per day? Do you remember?
Easily like 10 tip.
About 5 gigs. But we could, yeah.
It was just like, a little bit more fine tuning that I think I might need to do to improve it. And other than that, from the data transfer point of view, you can really move like 40, 50 terabyte on a 5 gig.
Yeah, you're doing like 40 or 50, but I think we only got you up to 10 tips a day. And
yeah,
you came to us, you're like, hey, I want to get 100 tips online. And so we got you up to 10 tips a day, and over a 10-day period, you can basically get that on chain.
Porter, can we go to the next slide, please?
Of course.
So this is the simplified setup after using ceiling as a service. We can see that, on the left top is Picnic. They helped providing some of the Fill Plus deals, comes my ISP's inbound channel to my firewall router, and they land on the server 1 where the boost does the copy and then stores the incoming deals into the local incoming scratch folder. When it is done, then the bridge software will take it, send it all the way over to the Align. Align will do all the sealing, comes back to the same path inbound to the Lotus Miner, and then Lotus Miner will save it into the long-term storage. Other than that, the server 2 is just like used for window post and winning post. This is an old Sandy Bridge Intel dual Xeon machine with DDR3 memory, and with NVIDIA A30 GPUs, can be 3080 as well, or 3070 with enough RAM. And that's it. And once you're done with seeding, you even don't need to keep the Fill Plus server, which is below the server 1, for storing the car files. You even don't need that one. So it gets very simplified. And one thing, sometimes people have asked me on the Slack channel, hey, what type of firewall router that you have used for this 5 gig bandwidth? This is a $100 Dell small computer that I purchased from eBay. Then I bought a 10 gig NIC again from the eBay, which is a Broadcom dual port 10 gig SFP plus based. It's an OpenSense firewall. It's freely available. You just download a copy and It's a full-fledged, very powerful firewall, and running on BSD. I think it's free BSD. I think, yes, free BSD or open BSD, one of those flavors. And the CPU load really remains, when you are moving 5 gig in, 5 gig out, the CPU load really remains below 50%.
We got a question in the chat. I'm not sure to what level you want to comment on it or not. So like, what is your profitability, return on capital, or total cost of your setup? Can you give some ideas about that?
Right. So the ROI, for example, on this setup is pretty fast, in a sense that you are not waiting for ceilings pipeline, which I had initially in-house, and I had to wait for pretty long time that ceiling is done, and I had to wait on my low-end CPUs and the GPUs, because PC2 requires 192 gigabyte worth of RAM, right? That's a lot of RAM. It doesn't take that much time for the PC2 process, but for PC1, it's slow, because you can only have certain number of threads running in a PC1 environment. So if you have in-house a small setup like me, sitting as a service, then the ROI is very slow and low in terms, because you really need to get the collateral, and the collateral company will ask you for weekly returns. And if you cannot generate enough block rewards, faster ROI, then they will ask you for the fill plus, and then you will have to pay out your pocket, right? So if you have all your ceiling done in a week, then I think starting the next week, you will have a lot of block rewards coming in. For example, on the 200 tip that I have, Fill Plus, I'm getting on average between 34 to 40 block rewards per month. And we see the baselining issues these days, but other than that, I saw fills in each block reward starting from 19 something to 16 something now. We are hoping that this situation may improve or go down, but from the ROI point of view, sealing as a service, I think for a small setup to try out is the best thing.
So sealing as a service was a lifesaver for you. The other one is working with Fill Plus deals. And Chuck on the chat asks how you got your commercial first deals. But you said you worked with Picnic for that, didn't you?
Initially for the Picnic, and then I applied for the LDN because I knew some open source data sets, large data sets, and got approval for those. Also, I involved myself into the Stuart guided me for a moon landing program, and that's how I involved with Caroline in the Phil Slack channel, and she helped getting some data sets. Those got approved, and then I injected them into the SP as well.
Cool.
And it's been a bit of what you're pointing to is how this whole thing is a bit of a team effort, right? Like what I love about Azure is what started out as kind of a client vendor relationship has become more of a friendship and teamwork process. So, when I look at my clients and like Azure as well, he's always been really open to open up back and show me how Boost works. Like, here's the command, here's how I interact with Boost, here's how I make car files. And through that, I'm actually learning so much. And then all of a sudden it's like, you can basically expand your value through all the people within the network. So one idea is to definitely make sure you're making friends. And like, for example, if anybody needs data or technical help, it's like, I know who to call. There's a bunch of people, Azure, I can call and say, hey, like someone needs a little bit of help here, or they need data cap and I know you have that. So all of a sudden it becomes, a package solution. Azure as well. It can be like, I have ceiling, I have someone with collateral through kind of our bigger network. So definitely, reach out there and we'll open up and help find you the resources you need to get you on chain quickly.
Yeah, I have been all in my life in educational environment. So sharing is always caring, right?
Yeah.
And it's best to make friends as well. why not? And I'm open to any discussions. If someone would like to see the setup, you can come visit me over here. I'll give you a tour. Maybe one of the best per tour, maybe, right?
I love the idea. I got to go back because this is still my favorite picture in all of Filecoin. Who doesn't want to come see a tour of this data center?
Yeah.
Bob, any thoughts or reflections from what Azher shared with us today on how you're going to go about doing this on your own? What sticks out?
What does stick out is that starting small is indeed a good plan, especially if you are like Azher and myself, running this whole business on your own or with one other person maybe. But I mean, starting small is just a thing you have to really look at and not go too fast and lose too much, because you're playing with money, with real money, if you're on mainnet. So you better learn it incrementally and grow from there. That's a good attitude.
Question for both Azher and Svetly. What's next for you both?
What's next? Continue to help grow the SPs. I think like we have a lot of capacity. So from Alliance perspective, it's about, and what I mentioned before, it's to continue to grow these connections that I've built within the network to offer a full package solution. So if you need, it's not just sealing that we're going to have for you, but you come in and now we have connections to collateral, we have connections to data, we have connections to technical help. So offering more of a full package solution. So anybody who wants to get off the ground, we'll get you going, we'll find you the resources and unblock.
Yeah, and from my perspective, from my research mindset, a compute over data is what I like to do some research on it, because now I have the data and how I can do some compute on it. So I'll be more involved into the research side of doing some compute over data.
Very interesting.
And another last thought I have is, even if you're running this on your own, network is so important. And I don't mean the 5 gigabit. I mean knowing the people who help you on all sides of this ecosystem to find deals, to find collateral, to find technical advice, architectural advice. This is where the open source community we're living in is so good at. So yeah.
Final question for you both, and then we'll get you out of here. If you could leave our audience with one piece of insight or advice, what would it be? Svetly, you first.
Just get out there, get out of the Excel file, start small, reach out to me, and it starts with that first 100 tips, and then that'll get you going, and you'll be quickly working on multi-pip projects in no time.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'll echo the same thing, is that, start low. You don't think that you really need a large CapEx to start these operations. And sometimes you really need to have your hands on the system so that you understand what you're doing. And if you have to convert that or migrate over to a commercial service provider, then you really need to understand all the economics, all the challenges, and all the issues, so that if you would like to start your business, then how you can be more successful.
Wow, really exciting conversation as always. You can find all 4 of us on Slack. We encourage you. It's at Bob Dubois, at Porter Stoll, at Mongo for Azher, and at Svetly. And I encourage you to follow us on Filecoin SP Twitter. We have our global storage provider community that anyone can join to get all the latest and greatest news and updates and information coming out of the Filecoin storage provider ecosystem. And be sure to check out our Filecoin docs. These are our newly released Filecoin docs, focus on the user experience of becoming a new storage provider. So absolutely go check those out. And be sure to tune in next month, where we dive into architecture, taking infrastructure into architecture. We'll have special guests talking about all things you need to be thinking about from an architectural standpoint before you get started. With that, Svetly, Azher, absolutely a pleasure. Thank you for participating, sharing your story. And I just love the scrappiness that Azher tells on just how to get resourceful in entering this ecosystem. And it proves that even a small player with a big vision and small budget can play in the Filecoin ecosystem. Bob, thanks again as always. And please tune in next month for another episode of 0 to 1. Thank you all. Have a great day.
Thank you.